A Twilight Squeeze by Blazewing. Twilight Sparkle was a young unicorn mare, under the tutelage of Equestria's most gracious monarch, Princess Celestia. She was a brilliant, brainy girl, but prone to relying on logic rather than common sense, though this was somewhat less than late thanks to her friends. Yes, you heard me right. A unicorn whose main concern was her academic studies had friends, some of the best she could ever ask for. Honest, hard-working Applejack, sporty, tomboyish Rainbow Dash, cultured, classy Rarity, sweet, sensitive Fluttershy, and fun-loving, chaotic Pinkie Pie. She also had a wonderful friend slash assistant slash little brother figure in the form of a baby dragon, Spike. What more can she ask for? Twilight, due to her studious nature, wasn't a very athletic pony by habit, but she did reasonably well to keep in shape. And she wasn't bad looking either. Violet coat, straight cut purple mane and tail, energetic purple eyes, and a cutie mark of a 6-pointed star. As time went on, however, due to her schedule, she tended to lapse and was showing signs of putting on a little weight in her middle. No one else criticized it though, as they knew she didn't get out very much. And this was a perfectly reasonable explanation for it. Nothing truly bothersome, considering it happened, until one day. It was her and Spike's designated overhaul day. Every nook and cranny scrunchionized and dusted with vigor. That meant taking all of the books off the shelves, dusting the books themselves, and putting them all back where they belonged. A normal task in itself, except for the fact that their home was a library. Actually, Spike never agreed to a day like this, but was dragged into it anyway by a combination of respect for Twilight, a sense of duty, and preference to avoid being scolded for not doing his part. So very early in the morning, there he was, sweeping the floor with as much enthusiasm as an automaton on low battery power. Twilight, on the other hand, was showing remarkable zeal, using her magic to lift objects from their place, give them a thorough dusting, and set them back.
"Come on, Spike, pick up the pace,"
said Twilight.
"The sooner we finish, the sooner we have to enjoy the rest of the week."
"But Twilight," Spike groaned, punctured by a yawn. "You already clean up faster than Pinkie Pie cleans her plate. What do you need me for?"
"Spike,"
said Twilight in a stern tone.
"that's not the right attitude. I can't clean the whole place on my own. Everybody's got to do their part. Look, even Aloysius is contributing."
Twilight's pet owl was indeed lending a wing to the cleanup job. He was picking up tiny scraps of loose scroll paper and putting them into the waste bin. Spike gave another groan. When he had first met Aloysius, they started off on the wrong foot, and he wasn't about to try and start up this again now. Okay, he said finally, and got back to sweeping, much to Twilight's satisfaction.
"That's the spirit. Now hurry, we want to get a good bit of it done in time for breakfast. I am starved."
Spike, as he swept, took a moment to glance at his mentor slash big sister figure. Her appetite had increased recently, though he couldn't pinpoint why, and was starting to get a little plump in the middle. Of course, he had no reason to jab at her about it, seeing how his preferred diet consisted of rare gemstones, and he wasn't exactly slim either. So he said nothing and kept on cleaning. He was interrupted by a loud hooting and saw Aloysius swoop over to Twilight, a letter clamped in his beak.
"Oh, thanks, Aloysius. Could you give it to Spike to read for me?"
The owl turned to Spike and handed him the letter. "Thanks, buddy," he said, and opened it, clearing his throat. "Dear Twilight, I know this may seem like short notice, but the annual Apple Family reunion is today, and I would be pleased as a pig in a mud bath if you and the others could come and join us, as you all are so much family to me. Your pal, Applejack.
Apple families unions today?
When Twilight and Spike had first arrived into Ponyville, the first pony that they met formally was Applejack, who had wasted no time introducing the two to a whole family at Sweet Apple Acres, of whom only the older brother, Big Macintosh, little sister Applebloom, and grandmother, Granny Smith, stayed with her in Ponyville. The rest were spread out all across Equestria in orchards of their own. Twilight had recklessly stayed for brunch, but now that she has gotten to know the apples a little better, the idea seemed more than exciting.
What do you think, Spike? Should we go?
Definitely. That is, if we can get cleaned up in time.
Oh, we'll worry about it once we get back. Come on! We can just make it if we hurry.
Setting her duster aside, she levitated Spike onto her back, making him drop his broom.
Aloysius, can you keep an eye on the library while we're away?
The little owl gave her an affirmative hoot, and she and Spike hurried off outside. By the time they had reached the gate to Sweet Apple Acres, Twilight was out of breath. There, standing under the arch, was Applejack, an earth pony, meaning she had no unicorn powers or ability to fly, with an orange coat, blonde mane and tail loosely tied, freckled cheeks, and a cutie mark of 3 apples on her flank. As always, she wore a brown Stetson hat on her head, and sitting beside her was her pet dog Winona, who barked in greeting when she saw Twilight and Spike.
Twilight, glad y'all can make it.
Applejack said, her voice carrying a strong southern accent.
I hope my letter didn't arrive too late for you.
Oh, Applejack.
Said Twilight, regaining her breath.
And I hope you don't mind me bringing Spike. I didn't want him to be all by himself.
Course not. When I wrote to you, I meant to include Spike in the invitation. He's always welcome.
She beamed at the little dragon, who smiled back.
Come on now, you're the last to arrive.
She led them across the farm over to a big barn at the end, where the sound of talking was almost deafening. Inside, the farm was jam-packed full of ponies, mares, and colts, all talking amongst each other. In one corner, Twilight could see Big Macintosh, a stoic red stallion with a cutie mark consisting of half of a green apple, who wasn't much of a talker, but was an unstormingly hard worker. He was listening to Brayburn, a yellow colt who happened to be Applejack's cousin from the western settlement of Appaloosa. Over in another part of the barn was Applebloom, a little filly with her red mane done up into a large pink bow, but with no cutie mark unlike her other family members. She and 2 friends of hers were part of a small group that regularly tried to discover their true talents, which was what allowed equestrian ponies to earn their cutie marks. As usual, Granny Smith, an elderly green mare with her white mane and tail done up in buns, and an apple pie by way of a cutie mark, was asleep in her rocking chair. Granny Smith was a lovable, feisty old lady, and one of the very first settlers of Ponyville. And there, in the center, were Twilight's 4 other friends, Rainbow Dash, Rarity, Pinkie Pie, and Fluttershy. Rainbow Dash was a sky blue Pegasus with an unruly rainbow-colored mane and tail, and a cutie mark consisting of a cloud with a multicolored lightning bolt. It was her job, as was the case for most Pegasi, to monitor the weather. Though she was a little lax with this, she was extremely competitive, obsessed with winning, and was perhaps a little rude at times, but she was a very loyal friend when needed called for it. Rarity was a pearl-white unicorn with a purple mane and tail done up in elegant curls, her cutie mark made up of 3 blue Longier diamonds. She was Ponyville's foremost fashion designer, her speciality being anything encrusted with gems. She was an architectural, uptown girl living in a small-town world, always yearning to make it big with her designs. She came off as rather snooty, dramatic, and obsessed with order, but was always ready to sacrifice it all for the sake of her good friends. On top of that, her little sister Sweetie Belle was one of Apple Bloom's best friends. Pinkie Pie was a pink earth pony with very poofy, frizzy magenta mane and tail. Her flag endured with a cutie mark of 3 balloons. Her whole life was dedicated to making ponies happy, and indeed, she seemed to exude an air of impressionable joy whenever she went. She was an expert on parties. She threw them very regularly, a connoisseur of sweets, and a friend to everyone she met. There were times where her behavior got into her friends' nerves, but she was also fun to be around. Fluttershy was a yellow Pegasus with a pink mane long enough to hide her face behind, which she might have been prone to do on occasion. Unlike most Pegasi who lived in the approximately named Cloudsdale, she preferred to live on the ground, in a cottage near the Everfree Forest. She was an animal caretaker and friend to all critters, big and small. So it made sense for her to have a cutie mark of 3 butterflies. She was painfully shy, hardly ever raised her voice, and tended to fret over small things, but was extremely sweet-natured and happy to please.
Girls, I'm so glad you can make it too,
said Twilight, coming over.
I wouldn't miss an apple family brunch for the world,
Whooped Pinkie, bouncing as she usually did, as if she were on the surface of the moon.
And it was so nice of Applejack to consider us family,
said Fluttershy, in her meek way.
especially considering how much family she has,
said Rarity, who always spoke with a hint of aristocratic accent in her voice.
Meaning no offense, of course.
And besides, they're the only ponies I know besides Pinkie Pie who really know how to pull off a cool party,
said Rainbow.
It certainly is quite the turnout,
said Twilight, looking about all of them.
I just wonder how soon brunch is.
I'm really hungry.
As if to answer her query, from outside there came a loud metallic ringing, as of someone clanging away on a triangle.
Soup's on, every pony!
Came Applejack's voice. Right on cue, every pony in the barn came rushing out and stampeded across the farmyard, Twilight and pals included. An enormous cloth-covered table had been set up, and everyone had a spot along its sides. Applejack, Big Mac, Apple Bloom, and Granny Smith sat at the head, followed by her friends. The table was already laden with a massive amount of apples and apple treats. Caramel apples, apple pie, apple crumble, apple strudel, apple cinnamon crisp, just to name a few. Twilight's mouth was watering, and so was Spike's, at the sight of the spread. However, Applejack stood up and tapped a bottle of apple juice beside her with a spoon held between her teeth.
Before we dig in,
She said,
I'd like to propose a toast to our special guests, my good friends Twilight, Spike, Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, Rarity, and Pinkie Pie. I know it seems a mite irregular, but to be perfectly truthful, they've been like family to me ever since I've known them. To Twilight and friends.
To Twilight and friends, came a chorus of Apple family voices. Twilight smiled at Applejack.
Thanks, AJ.
I meant every word of it, Twi.
She said, with an equally warm smile.
And now,
She said aloud.
on your marks, get set, chow!
It was going on noon by the time everyone had eaten their full, and Twilight and Spike had just excused themselves, saying that they still had work to do. No one seemed regretful of her parting, as they knew that this was just Twilight's habit. So she wished all of the visiting apples goodbye and safe travels, and she made her way home, while everyone else continued to talk. Twilight walked slowly, as she had eaten about as much as she had been forced to eat upon first arriving into Ponyville, her belly quite disdained and hanging between her legs. She didn't feel quite as sick as last time, however. Spike was still munching on a caramel apple on a stick. "Boy," he said, "when those apples cook, they really cook,"
Tell me about it.
agreed Twilight.
I feel like I could eat more, but we can't get ourselves too far off track.
Right, Spike groaned. They finally arrived back home, But to their surprise, they found Owlicious flying past with a dust rag in his talons. Everything looked sparkly clean.
Owlicious, did you do all of this?
Twilight asked, amazed. Owlicious gave a small hoot and pointed with his wing. 3 more animals had joined him, all carrying various cleaning implements. One was a tiny alligator, carrying a dusting brush with his toothless mouth. Another was a little rabbit holding a sponge. The last was a tortoise with an odd propeller-like abastress on his shell. These were Gummy, Angel, and Tank, the pets of Pinkie Pie, Fluttershy, and Rainbow Dash, respectively. The only ones not present were Winona, who was obviously still at Sweet Apple Acres, and Opalescence, who was Rarity's pampered and bad-tempered Persian cat. It seemed Owlicious had summoned them here to help.
Wow, this is so nice. Thanks, everyone.
Gummy gave his tail an energetic little twitch. Angel grinned and gave Twilight a chipper squeak, and even Tank, in his slow way, smiled.
You better hurry, though, before you're missed,
she went on. As if in agreement, all 3 of them scurried out of the door.
Aloysius, you really are a marvel,
Twilight said approvingly. The little owl settled on her back and gave her an affectionate nuzzle.
You know what this means, Spike? You got the rest of the day to relax.
I was hoping you'd say that, Spike said as he leaped off her back. Race you to the top! He sprinted upstairs, laughing. But when he stopped at the top, he found that he had won by a landslide. Twilight was plodding her way up very slowly, her full belly wobbling with each step she took. Spike looked concerned. You okay, Twi?
Yeah, I think I just ate too much. That's all.
She finally made it up.
I'll be fine, Spike, really. I just haven't eaten so much since we first arrived.
She gave him a reassuring smile. Then, as she turned, she cast a curious glance at the wall.
Hey, what's that?
What's what? Spike followed her gaze. Her vanity had been shifted to the right, and where it stood, there was a small hole in the wall, a mere crawl space. Spike took one look at it, and became immediately apprehensive. Oh, that? It's probably nothing,
It can't be nothing, Spike.
said Twilight.
I have a hole in my wall. I'm gonna check it out.
She trotted over to it. But there could be something unpleasant in there, Spike blurted. Twilight stopped at the hole and looked at him from the corner of her eye, in an amused way.
Spike, is there something you're hiding from me?
What? Oh, come on, Twilight. When have I ever kept a secret from you? Twilight raised an eyebrow, and Spike rethought what he said. Okay, so maybe I may have fibbed a couple of times, but I just don't think you should go lurking into that hole.
Oh, stop being such a scaredy dragon. I'm just going to take a peek inside, that's all. What is it? A shrine for Rarity?
Spike blushed. It was no secret among her friends that he had a crush on Rarity, and to an extent, it was reciprocated, but only to that extent. Twilight got into a crouch, which seemed difficult for her, with her bloated middle. Her horn began to glow a purplish light. She began inching her way forward, poking her head and front hooves through.
Kinda looks like a tunnel. Must be a pack rat or something.
She edged forward a little more, and then stopped short. It was a voluntary act, however. What she hadn't noticed when examining the hole was that it was much too small to allow her bulky belly to pass through, and it was now plugged up against the rim of it, keeping her from going any further. She strained and groaned as she tried to push herself forward.
It's a little snug.
She grunted. Then she stopped, and Spike saw her brace her back hoofs against the wall and try to pull herself out. But it was no good. She stayed put, her stomach firmly lodged.
Rainbow!
What's wrong, Twilight? Spike asked.
I think I'm stuck.
She said. Well, that's not much of a surprise there, Spike began.
And don't give me giant jokes!
She said pettishly, giving her tail an angry flick. I wasn't going to say that, said Spike defensively, prompting Twilight to sigh.
I'm sorry, Spike. This is just a little frustrating. Can you help me out?
I can try. He hurried over to access the situation. It didn't look very pretty. Even if Twilight was at her normal weight, she most likely wouldn't have fit through the hole. At least not very easily. Filling up at the Apple family brunch hadn't helped at all. Would you like to be pushed in or pulled out?
Well, if I were pushed in, I don't know how I would get back.
She said, sounding as if she was trying to stay patient. Good point. Hang on then. He grabbed her long tail and gave a hearty tug on it.
Ow! Don't pull my tail, Spike! Pull on my legs if you have to.
Oh, right. Sorry, Spike said sheepishly. Being such a little dragon, he couldn't manage much of a grip. But he grabbed Twilight's back hooves, and as the best that he could, and pulled. Her stomach seemed to stretch from the effort of pulling, but didn't budge from its trap. After taking a small breather, Spike tried again, but with no better results. Twilight was stuck fast. It's no good, Twilight, he said, panting. I can't budge you,
Well, thanks for trying, Spike.
said Twilight sadly. But don't worry, I'll go get the others. Maybe they can help.
Oh, that's a great idea. Why didn't I think of that?
I don't know, but I'll be back as quick as I can. Going as fast as his little legs could take him, Spike sprinted out of the library, leaving Twilight to ponder over her predicament. Alone,
I guess I haven't been keeping track of my weight.
she said sadly.
How could I have let this happen? I'm always on top of everything. How could this slip unnoticed? And in all honesty, I really should have let Spike go first. He could have fit in easily.
She didn't know how long she remained this way, staring down at the dark tunnel, miserable, alone, feeling just like that silly old bear who had eaten too much honey. Then, all of a sudden, there was a clatter of hooves and a rush of wings that told her that her friends had arrived.
Whoa, Nelly.
Came Applejack's voice.
You alright, Sugar Cube?
Twilight was about to answer, when there came a burst of laughter from Rainbow Dash. A thud and an
Ow!
told Twilight someone had cuffed her.
Honestly, Rainbow Dash, how can you laugh at poor Twilight's predicament?
Asked Rarity sternly.
I got caught up in the moment.
Said Rainbow, in an angrily offended tone.
You didn't have to hit me. Sorry, Twi.
Don't be sorry, Rainbow.
Said Twilight.
I'm not too happy with myself either.
Aw, come on, Twilight.
Came Pinkie's chipper voice.
Don't be such a saddy, stucky face. Well, actually I can't tell what your face is, because you're stuck there all the way round.
Gee, thanks, Pinkie.
Said Twilight bitterly.
Does it hurt, Twilight?
Asked Fluttershy, concerned.
It's all right, Fluttershy. I'm not hurt. It's just pretty uncomfortable.
How did you get like this anyway?
Asked Rainbow.
I mean, you're no athlete, but you've always been pretty trim.
I don't know how it happened. I've just been finding myself eating a lot more recently.
Probably because you've spent more time studying, skipping meals a lot before recently, said Spike.
Yeah, that may be it.
It wasn't unreasonable for a pony as dedicated to her work as Twilight, but it had never been this bad before.
Hey now, don't sound so depressed, hun.
Said Applejack, reassuringly.
It happens to the best of us. I mean, look at me. I ain't like a horse, if you'll pardon the expression.
Yeah, but it's normal for you. You're a work pony.
That was true enough. Applejack was one of the most athletic ponies in Ponyville. Despite her victorious appetite, She burned off all those calories apple bucking, giving her a toned physique.
How about me?
Asked Pinkie.
I eat tons of sweets every day.
Again, nothing truer could be said. On a normal day, Pinkie was usually the plumpest out of all of them. Her appetite of sweets knew no bounds.
But you're always burning off all that energy,
said Twilight.
I don't have any excuse.
Every pony was silent, concerned for their friend. I think we've wasted enough time, Spike said firmly. Let's get Twilight out of there. This was met by a chorus of enthusiasm from the 5 ponies.
Now, don't be a fretting or nothing, Twilight, but this is necessary,
said Applejack. Twilight was confused at this, but then understood the meaning by the touch of something around her plump middle. Applejack had lassoed her around her waist, good and tight. She couldn't help letting in a giggle escaped as it tightened.
What?
asked Pinkie, sounding curious.
Is there something funny in there? I want to see.
No, it's just that I'm, ticklish.
She whispered meekly.
Pardon?
asked Rarity.
I'm ticklish.
Twilight said louder. Huh? I never knew that, said Spike.
Now's not the time for addle-gab, Spike,
said Applejack, who had taken the other end of the rope in her teeth.
Y'all stand back.
She gave a mighty heave, and Twilight felt her back end jerked backwards.
Ow!
But her belly still remained jammed in the hole. The stubborn work pony dug her hooves into the floor and yanked mightily, teeth firmly clamped onto the rope. Those who knew Applejack personally who would never have believed the difficulty she was facing. Their Applejack, rodeo champion of Ponyville ever since she was a filly, was one of the strongest applebuggers found in Equestria, finally lacking in her trademark muscle when she needed it the most. Preparing for and taking part in the Apple family reunion had most likely thrown off her better concentration. At last, she was forced to let the rope drop from her mouth.
Land sakes. I must have been slacking lately. Sorry, Twilight.
You put in a valiant effort, Applejack.
said Rarity.
But perhaps where brute strength fails, a little magic prevails.
Brute?
Applejack blurted angrily. But Rarity was already at work, using her magic from her horn to telekinetically grip the wedged unicorn.
Hold tight, darling,
she said. Twilight then felt a great tug and heard Rarity grunt with the strain. But her efforts didn't produce any better effect than Applejack's. Now naturally, Rarity has no powerhouse. Her entire focus was on fashion and beautification. But those who had the pleasure of her better acquaintance knew that beneath her prissy, clean freak exterior beat the heart of a pony who could flip the cultured and classy to frighteningly hot-tempered in the blink of an eye, especially when it came to either her work or the plights of her dear friends. Today, however, was different, and despite her earnest efforts, she just couldn't summon the strength she was looking for. After a few more attempts, she was forced to give in as well.
Well, I'm sorry, dear, but I'm stumped.
Surprise, surprise,
said Rainbow in a snarky tone, causing the fashionista to glare at her.
Watch how a pro gets it done.
Rainbow scooped up the rope from her teeth and hovered into the air. Then, without warning, Twilight felt herself jerked backwards again.
Ow!
Rainbow was straining with all of her might, wings flapping furiously, teeth holding the rope so tightly that it would have snapped in two otherwise, but Twilight still didn't budge from the hole. Besides being the winner of the Best Young Flyers competition, and the only Pegasus in living memory to pull off the fabled Sonic Rainboom, a trick once derided as an old mare's tail, Rainbow was Ponyville's other prime athlete, next to Applejack. Her one zealous desire was to impress the Wonderbolts, Equestria's top daredevil flyers, with her own tricks, and be asked to join their ranks, and thus was always looking for ways to improve herself. Besides that, however, in contrast to her usually brash and boastful nature, Rainbow had a heart of gold, and would never abandon her friends for anything in the world. Unfortunately, even with this unwavering dedication to her best pals, her Pegasus muscle just couldn't excavate poor Twilight, and so she was forced to quit.
Man, no offense, Twi, but you're one stuck pony.
So I noticed.
Grumbled Twilight.
I don't think we're going about this the right way.
Fluttershy said tentatively.
Oh? You got any bright ideas?
Rainbow asked. The unconvinced look she was giving to Fluttershy made the latter regret speaking up. She squeaked and hid her face under her mane.
Well, no, forget I said anything.
Ugh, this is so like you, Fluttershy. Why can't you ever contribute something useful for once?
Fluttershy hung her head.
Hey!
Pinkie cut in defensively.
You leave her alone! You don't know if her idea will be stupid or not!
And what did you plan to do, Pinkie? Throw a party and hope that would make things better? Maybe I don't know. It's okay that you're stuck, Twilight Party?
Pinkie's ears lowered, hurt by this jab to her talent.
Now see here.
Rarity interjected.
This is no time to be insulting every pony.
And you're the one to be talking about insults?
Snapped Applejack.
Calling me a brute?
Rarity rounded on her, and scandalized the look on her face.
What? I called you nothing of the sort. I merely said brute strength.
Well, them's fighting words in my book.
Applejack interrupted, leaning in so that she was snout to snout with the prissy unicorn. Her vibrant green eyes narrowed.
Then I suggest you find a different author,
said Rarity coldly.
Why, you...
The library exploded into assorted arguments and insults, every pony except Fluttershy and Spike in full career. The former had clapped her hooves into against her ears to block out the arguing as best she could. Inside her trap, Twilight hung her head, tears brimming in her eyes. This was ridiculous. If her friends were reduced to squabbles on her account, then she might never get out. They were arguing because of her, because she had let herself get this way. Spike, who had been beside Twilight the whole time, resting a gentle claw on her side, and now cringing from the arguments between the four ponies, started as she felt Twilight's body twitch. She had been reduced to quiet sobs in the midst of all this. He felt a surge of compassionate pity flow through him, replaced soon after by hot anger, almost hot enough to expel itself as dragon fire. He took a deep breath and yelled, "Quiet!" Immediately, every pony stopped right where they were, staring at Spike in stupefaction. "Look at all you! Poor Twilight's trapped, completely helpless, and all you can do is insult each other when she needs you the most. What would the princess say if she saw you all acting like this?" Every pony looked at each other, ashamed with themselves. If Princess Celestia had indeed been present, she might have had some choice words for them. "Now," said Spike, regaining his patience, "I say we let Fluttershy tell us the idea she has." Rainbow was about to speak, but a sharp glare from the baby dragon cut her off.
Go ahead, darling.
Rarity said encouragingly.
We're listening.
Fluttershy looked up, though her confidence was a little bolstered by the fact that all eyes were on her now. At last, she tentatively spoke up.
Well, I'm only speaking from past experience. But once I got my hoof stuck in a birdhouse when I was feeding the robins. I was worried I was going to be stuck there for a long time. If Angel hadn't brought soup and lathered my hoof up, I might not have been able to get out. So maybe, If we soap up Twilight's tummy and then all of us pull together, maybe we can get her out.
Everyone gazed at her, as if stunned.
Fluttershy?
Began Rainbow, sounding humble, then enthused.
I was wrong. That's the best plan we've had all day.
You mean it?
Fluttershy asked, startled.
Yeah!
Said Pinkie, bouncing in place.
This situation calls for saturation! A brilliant idea, Fluttershy.
Said Rarity.
I only wish we'd thought of it sooner.
Guess we were too mule-headed about our own strengths.
Said Applejack.
That we were too busy to use brains instead of brawn. Good work, Fluttershy.
Fluttershy looked embarrassed, but pleased at this praise. I'll go get the soap, Spike said, greatly heartened by this new turn, and he scampered off quickly. In next to no time, he returned with a bar of bath soap. This may tickle, Twilight, but it's to help you get out. He quickly got to work, rubbing the bar along Twilight's belly, where it was crammed in the hole. Indeed, it did tickle, and Twilight's tail swished furiously as she tried to stifle her giggles. Hearing the giggles made Spike smile. However, because he knew his friend was in good spirits again, and that hopefully she'll soon be free. At last, Twilight's middle was slick and shiny from the soapy coating.
All right, girls. And Spike.
Said Applejack, saying the latter as an almost forgotten afterthought.
Grab a hold of the rope.
Everyone took hold of the rope with their teeth, and Spike in his claws. Rarity at first seemed adverse to picking up the rope with her mouth, seeing as Applejack and Rainbow had held it in theirs, but a stern look from Applejack checked her squeamishness.
It's for Twilight. It's for Twilight.
Rarity repeated, mentally preparing herself, before finally taking hold of the rope. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3! Every pony gave a mighty tug at the rope. At first, it didn't seem to work, and Twilight was still as stuck as ever. Then, everyone felt the rope go extremely taut from behind. Fluttershy, who normally wasn't very strong, was pulling with the strength that she had only had used once before, when her motivation was roused at the thought of losing their old foe, Discord. It always seemed like it was the quiet, soft-spoken ones that had the most violent bursts of strength and attitude when least expected. And Fluttershy, sweet innocent Fluttershy, who was so delicate that her own shadow used to spook her, was no exception to this rule. Inspired by the shy pony's show of strength for her friend, every pony gave another great heave, and slowly, very slowly, Twilight began to inch backwards. She was coming loose. "Keep going, every pony!" Spike cried. "We're almost there!" They all gave another pull, and at last, with a pop like a cork escaping from a bottle, Twilight came flying out and bowed right into them, knocking them all in a heap. The rope was still tightly bound around her soaked middle, and there was some dust in her mane, but otherwise she looked perfectly fine.
I'm out!
She squealed.
Oh, everyone, thank you so much!
All at once, she was mobbed on all sides by a warm group hug from her close friends. No, her family, as Applejack had so designated them.
I'm so sorry for causing so much trouble.
Oh, you have nothing to be sorry about, dear,
Said Rarity.
It's us that ought to apologize
Said Applejack.
for getting to feuding when you needed us.
Oh, don't worry about it, girls. I just wish I knew what that hole was all about.
At these words, Spike sighed. Well, it did cause you this trouble. I guess you ought to know now. As everyone watched, Spike ducked down and clambered into the tiny tunnel. A few moments later, he returned, carrying a large bit of paper wrapped in a neat scroll. "I was hoping to keep it hidden away until your birthday," he said. "That's why I didn't want you looking in it." He unrolled it, and everyone but Twilight gasped, then awed. She, for her part, was too stunned to speak. It was a hand-drawn picture of her and Spike, surrounded by a big heart, and underneath were the words, "To my best friend, Twilight." "I've been spending my free time in there getting my artwork right," he said, a little sheepishly. "Do you like it?" Everyone let go of Twilight, so she could approach Spike. A warm, teary-eyed smile filled her face.
I love it, Spike.
She said. Then, after a moment's pause,
Come here, you.
she grabbed Spike and hugged him against herself, nuzzling the top of his head with her cheek. Her friends all smiled at this affectionate display. Spike nestled himself against her belly. "Wow, you're even better to hug this way," he said. Twilight giggled.
Don't get too cozy with it, Spike. It's not going to last too long.
"I know. I just want to enjoy how snuggly you were while it lasts." She grinned and gave him a playful noogie with her hoof.
Do you think this warrants a letter to the princess?
Asked Fluttershy.
Maybe, but I doubt this is something to bother her about. If anything, it's taught me that I need to go on a diet.
Every pony laughed good-naturedly at this.
Still,
Said Applejack, apologizingly.
Rarity, I'm sorry I got so huffy with you.
Oh, no, Applejack.
Said Rarity.
It is I who should apologize for insulting you like that.
I know you didn't mean it.
Said the hardly fawn pony, throwing her foreleg around Rarity's shoulder. At first, the fashionista looked uncomfortable with this gesture, but she learned by now to ignore such invasions of personal space if it was her close friends, so she gracefully accepted AJ's embrace. Rainbow, for her part, was looking uncomfortable, not looking at Fluttershy or Pinkie.
Listen, guys.
She said.
I'm not too good at eating humble pie.
No one is, silly.
Said Pinkie.
It tastes like bleh.
She punctured this with a gag me expression, complete with her tongue sticking out. Rainbow raised an eyebrow, then continued.
But I'm sorry I acted like that towards you both. Fluttershy, your plan worked after all. And Pinkie, I should know better than any pony to never insult your party skills.
Oh, Rainbow Dash.
Said Fluttershy, in that soft, sweet voice of hers.
You know we can never stay mad at a good friend like you. We all were a little out of temper.
She leaned in and warmly nuzzled Rainbow's cheek, getting a soft smile from the boyish Pegasus. The tender moment was evaporated, however, as Pinkie sprung in between them and grabbed the both of them in a tight hug.
And I forgive you too, Dashy. I'd say this calls for a celebration. Cupcakes on me.
This idea was met with a collection of groans from everyone present. They were still full from the mountainous apple family brunch that they all come back from, and the thought of other foods mingling with their already full-to-capacity stomachs was nauseating. Pinkie looked around them, confounded with the lack of enthusiasm, but perked up almost immediately.
Oh well, more for me.